She could sense she was not alone. The rest of his old filthy pliers and the iron of blood that covered his face and clothing lingered in her once so-called safe place. She hushed herself as heavy boots make their way into the discarded room. Creak 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 thump. Silence. She could feel her heart drop into the pit of her stomach. Her fate and safety hung before her, unsure which way it would fall. So badly she wanted to peep from the wooden closet panels where she hid behind. Wanting to see what the monster was, if he left, if he was near, anything to give her answers. Her chest rose and fell violently, slowly moving up towards the panels before her. Trying her best not to make a sound. Sweat pooled off her as if it were raining above. Her arm rose, fingers trembling as they felt their way to the blinds to open them ever so slightly. She licked her dry lips and took a deep breath, poking and pulling a single one of the blinds up. Her eyes closed shut, scared to see his lifeless eyes. After a tight squeeze, she snapped them open again. Only to see an empty room before her. No one was there. She let go of the blinds and laid back to catch her breath. Panting almost, but her pace started to even out after a moment or two. Maybe she was safe at least for now. All of a sudden the closet door flung open, smacking the adjacent wall, revealing the man with a white face full of blood and many jagged misplaced teeth. One hand held a large pair of pliers, while the other hand was all veins and dry blood. He pushed himself into the closet, throwing his metal pliers at the hardwood floor, as the girl screamed bloody murder, kicking and flailing her arms. He grabbed her by her neck and slammed her head against the wall behind her. Although she was dazed and confused, she gasped for air and clawed at his grip, fighting for her life. She started to gag from the lack of air. His grip only tightened as he slammed her head again even harder. Her face, which was red, started to change to a dark shaded purple-blue. He gave her head another slam. This time the back of her head was pierced by a sharp thick nail that seemed to poke out of the wall. Blood started to trickle down the wall behind her. After a moment her fighting turned to nothing. She fell limp. The man stared at the girl, removing his hands from her neck, studying her. Although her body fell flat, her head remained pinned to the wall, keeping her up. One of his hands lifted from beside him, cupping her cheek, using his thumb to lift up and stretch out her lips, to view her teeth. The girl's body is dragged to the bathroom, leaving a blood trail behind her. The man pulled her head into his lap as he sat on the side of the bathtub. He used one hand to grab her by the hair of her head, posing her. The other hand held his old rusty pliers caked in blood. He whipped her head back, her mouth weakly gaped open. He moved his pliers into her mouth, moving under her top lip. Snapping his pliers down on one of her front teeth, and he began to pull outwards, slightly twisting both directions to loosen it from her gums. After collecting every tooth he found worthy, he shoved her onto the floor and stood up, tossing the teeth into his pocket. Setting his pliers on the counter beside him, he pulled the girl from the floor and placed her into the bathtub. After laying her inside, he closed the shower curtain behind her and walked out to play with his newly found gems. Each tooth very different. The shape, the size, the characteristics. All fascinating to the man in the mask. A mask with a smile of endless teeth.